decided I'm going to do wacky voices all night, so just be prepared.
Do you have a cold as well?
Yeah, a little bit.
At home, I'm trying to avoid the outbreak monkey that I live with. She's sniffling through Aquaman, and she, bless her heart, she waited till the loud moments to blow her nose. She could see it coming. Like, now's the time, because I didn't really hear her at all.
What'd you think?
I like it. It's not great.
It's no Bumblebee.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast, Year in Review. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
I mean, who wants to have sex with a guy named Bob?
Oh, Bob. This doesn't sound right. Oh, Bob.
Bob. Oh, Bob.
Oh, Bob.
Oh,
Bob. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
That's Jaime. Protege of mine. Ranked number 32 in the federal prison system.
32?
That's right.
Out of what, 20?
Visit us at IHateCritics.net. Everyone's a Critic Podcast.com. We're on Facebook. Our Twitter and Instagram handle is CriticsPod. That's where our top 5 movie fights, whatever segment we're doing that week is, trailers when we post them, our interaction, Sean's reviews, all of it's on the social media platforms and our website. All of our Undisputed Classics are on our websites as well. If you click on the Undisputed tab, and you can see all the 88 or the 30-year-old movies, which, speaking of, 18th ending, so we need an 89 sound clip if anybody has one. Or if they know a movie that's where they say 1989. I'm sure there's one somewhere. Just keep thinking about that. Normally I ask in like August. But regardless, those are there. And our t-shirts and stuff are under podcast merch, that tab in the IHateCritics.net site as well. We have 3 shirts up there right now. Patreon, IHateCritics.net/Patreon. Best way to help support the podcast. Then Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, all your other podcatchers. We're there. Listen to us there. Subscribe, rate and review the show. We'll try to read any reviews we get on the air. But this is our year in review, so we'll start by reviewing or giving our top 5s from 30 years ago. Our 1988 top 5s. Rain Man won Best Picture this year.
Yes, it did.
So we'll see how many times Rain Man pops up on our top 5s.
Not on mine.
Why don't you start with number 5?
Maybe my bottom 5.
Or perhaps should we all just read a list instead of going around for 88?
I like the round.
The round? Okay, cool.
Although, are you participating?
I got my 5. I had a hard time nailing down 5. That was a good year, actually.
Turned out to be, yeah.
My number 5 is They Live. I love They Live. I know it's, in terms of the quality, I know people have a hard time with it being, it seems a little bit more low budget, and obviously the actors are not, the big name guys, but I love They Live. I think it's just exceptional in so many ways and prescient, and I just enjoy this goddamn movie more than I do even movies as good as The Last Temptation of Christ, Naked Gun, or Mississippi Burning. Those are all great movies, but I don't enjoy them the way I enjoy They Live.
You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of Josh's segment anyway, so he can
favorite
close the show. Well, you also control it. You do a good job of running it. I had Big as my number 5. It's the Tom Hanks I want in every movie. I don't like to watch him grow. I'm that guy who, when the artist tries to expand, and I want to hold him down and be this guy all the time. And nostalgia is a big part of a lot of my list, to be honest with you. But Big's one of my favorite movies, and this is a hell of a year. So it being one of my favorite movies and number 5 at 88 is a pretty big deal to me.
For my number 5, I left off a bunch of these new comedies that I saw, and they didn't crack the 5, but boy, they were so close.
Yeah.
Like Feds, Coming to America, it was my first time seeing that. Big Business, and Scrooged was the first time I saw that too. So 4 of those that almost made it, and I found it funny that it was all comedies, because usually the comedies are something you'd see first, you know. But for me, my number 5 is Die Hard. Pretty low down on the list, but once I get to the other 4, I'm like, yeah, it scooches Die Hard to 5, which means I agree with you. I think it ended up being a good year for movies that last a long time and stay in the public eye.
Die Hard actually didn't make my list. That's how.
There you go.
Wow. My number 4 is Big. And of course, it's appropriate that we've all got Big. I don't know if you have it on your list, but
it is not.
I didn't think he liked Big, if I remember right, or didn't. He wasn't as big as we talked about. Anyway,
it's appropriate because Penny Marshall having just passed away. It's pretty prescient that this comes up now, and important that it comes up now. She was incredible, and she did an amazing job on this movie. And Tom Hanks makes the job pretty easy, but she just shows that what an incredible director that she was.
And here's where Sean and I are the same person. My number 4 is They Live. Just a movie that's I like more and more every time I watch it. I didn't like it the first time I saw it, and then having seen it probably 5 or 6 times since then, all in the last few years, it's just a movie I go back to a lot, and it's, like Sean was saying, it's pretty topical. What does John Carpenter say? It's not a movie, it's a documentary.
What's funny about our love for They Live is like it's something we've had to come to, kind of like the way we like professional wrestling, and this one's got Roddy Piper in it. It's kind of that thing you like that you don't want to tell people that you like until finally you get old enough to own the things that you like.
Well, then you start to recognize that there's a huge audience for this movie. It's a cult audience, but it's still pretty big, and I don't know. I think really the fact that it's super relevant and it really never stopped being relevant, it almost gets more and more relevant every year, is what really makes me like it more than I should.
Yeah, I loved it too. I just came late to the game, so I don't have like the background with nostalgia with it. It did make my list of movies that I was trying to rank, that's for sure, but I had a poor experience with it when it turned 30.
Josh?
My number 4 is Colors, the Robert Duvall, Sean Penn movie from earlier in the year. Just kind of eye-opening how good those two actors that aren't always good can be. And it told a story that I wasn't unfamiliar with, but at the same time did it in such a powerful way that it stuck with me 7-8 months later.
My number 3 is the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Die Hard. I love Die Hard. We've already said everything we need to say about Die Hard. It's my number 3.
Die Hard would have probably been number 6. It was hard for me to be like, do I really have to cross Die Hard off? But I did. I probably should have left it on. This is where Sean and I differed, is I put Last Temptation of Christ on at 3 because I'd have the 2 fun movies below it and the 2 fun movies ahead of it. Of the good ones, the artistic ones, this is the one I like the most. I grew up Catholic. This movie was so, do not see this movie, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's Scorsese. You have New York accents in Bethlehem or wherever the hell they're at. Not even that well-versed. Jerusalem. I don't know. It really spoke to me when I first saw it, and I still like the idea. If there is a Jesus, if he's a God, he's half man, half God. And I like the fact that they actually put the half man and spent a lot of time with the man part of it, which they never do in Christianity. So I thought it was a really neat movie, as blasphemous as it is. Josh?
My number 3 is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Growing up as a kid with this, seeing it on one level and then coming to it as an adult, it's a complete work of art. I have a feeling that it's not going to be, it clearly isn't as high as you might have it on your list, but it's masterful. It's cool to see it through this show's eyes as opposed to what my memory was telling me, because there's a lot there. There's comedy and artistry and excellent period acting, and the rabbit himself. I mean, culturally too, it's still staying relevant. Not to the point where they, had like this huge franchise built around it, but boy, it has stuck in the public eye at least a little bit.
That's one of the nice things that they've never abused Roger Rabbit as a property, which is very nice. It's my number 2. It comes in second for me. And it's interesting. I just saw a really shitty Robert Zemeckis movie this week, so it's nice to think back on Roger Rabbit when he used to be a very good director.
And it's not on my list. And it came down to I have so much nostalgia for 4 of the 5 movies on my. Actually, even if you count Last Temptation, the fact of going through all that, Roger Rabbit, I like it. It's 6, 7. That Die Hard and that were the 2 really hard to like. I felt like they needed to be on the list, but I just couldn't knock off movies that I live with on a regular basis to this day. My number 2 is what I think is the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Scrooged. I've seen this movie as much as I've seen Rocky IV and My Cousin Vinny and Who's the Man. It's one of those movies I watch multiple times during Christmas, not just once. I love this movie, and the nostalgia definitely has it up that high for sure, and I won't deny that.
My number 2 is The Naked Gun. High up in my top 50 was The Naked Gun, and when it turned 30 here this year, I examined it through the eyes of my son too, who just happened to really like it too, or at least he said that much. And so now I've got like a whole other generation to pass on ridiculous humor to. It's a genre that seems to be kind of going away a little bit, and every single moment of this movie has a joke in it. That's something that I've heard in a lot of different places, and this time watching it, I'm seeing, if you really pay attention to this movie, yeah, some of them don't hit as hard as the others, but I quote this movie all the time. Not just from Nice Beaver, but also, other funny
Josh
things.
does say that too much. Just walking down the road. Nice Beaver.
Well, sometimes, when they're chomping on... Never mind.
Sean? Do we all have the same number 1?
I don't know. Do we?
I think you and I do.
But I just want to give a quick shout out to a couple of movies that would have been on that are right below my top 5: Mississippi Burning, Heathers, The Accused, Grave of the Fireflies, and Cinema Paradiso are all amazing movies that people should see from '88. But my number 1 is Bull Durham. That's the greatest baseball movie of all time.
Yeah, we all agreed on that.
It's also my number 1.
Yeah, it's far and away my favorite baseball movie, but then again, it's also one of my top. I don't know. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Maybe even the top 10 movie.
Not even nominated for Best Picture, was it?
I don't think so.
No, it was not. It was just crazy when you think about it. I mean, as much as I like Rain Man, it isn't in my top 5 here, and its rewatchability is on such a lower scale compared to Bull Durham. Quotability, unless you're going the Dustin Hoffman route, I mean,
which is almost inappropriate.
Yes,
in 2019.
Very much so.
But I mean, how many times do I walk into a room and say, "Announce my presence with authority"? People don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but at least you guys do. Thanks.
Yeah, Bull Durham. Everybody should see it over and over again. Hopefully, we talk about it again on the show.
Should have won Best Picture.
Yep, the Almost Famous of '88. All right, our top 10s this year. I had a hard time with this one because 7 through 10, I could really flip a coin every rung down, or 3 through 10. I'm sorry, the last 7. Want to do it a similar way?
Why don't we start with you and I'll go last this time?
Least important to most important. I like it.
You said it, I didn't.
I know. Okay, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, number 10, because I'm predisposed to like this movie, Creed 2. I mean, there's literally probably 20 movies that I think are all really good. Green Book, The Hate U Give. There's so many more. But Creed 2, it's a Rocky movie, and it actually over-delivered on what I thought it was going to be. It ended up being a pretty phenomenal movie. Not top 1, 2 level, but, for someone who has such a nostalgic feeling towards Rocky, it'd be stupid for me not to put it in my top 10. So, and it's actually really good, so Creed 2.
For me, my number 10 is Black Panther. I've felt bad before about putting superhero movies as part of my top 10.
Because of me, I always make you feel bad.
Mocked to the end of your world for putting Captain America the Winter Soldier on my top 10 of the half year back in 2014. So I decided that I would never do that again unless it deserved it. I believe I put Wonder Woman on my top 10. But Black Panther, despite it being a superhero movie, it's kind of the vibe of the whole thing and how self-contained it is and how it's its own identity in it, despite the fact that it's in this very harsh editorial world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It seems to take way more risks and say more things, and that stuck with me. Seeing it the second time, it resonates just a little bit more because I'm going way past the action and everything, and I'm looking more on the performance of Chadwick Boseman, and especially of Michael B. Jordan, which I know he's not going to get nominated for. It's a superhero film, but that performance by Michael B. Jordan is just so in your face. And it flies in the face of what villains should be saying on screen, unless you're the Joker or something. He's saying things that are important. And so the movie stuck with me.
Well, and it really has held up for, I mean, it's only been the year, but I mean, he's gone and now he's as big as Captain America and Iron Man and everybody. I mean, my son cannot, we bought a Black Panther doll today. Mm-hmm. You know, it was, and I don't know if this is, I mean, we went and saw Aquaman. On the way home from Aquaman, he's still only talking about Black Panther. He's talking like he's from Wakanda. He's trying to do the accent and pretend like it was kind of cute.
Awesome.
And not offensive. It was, that did run by in my head. I'm like, no, that's actually a good thing. He's not even thinking about anything other than that. But anyway, yeah, it's a hell of a superhero movie for sure.
It really is. My number 10 is, it was tough because it came down to two movies that I really love. There's a movie called 1985, which I know most people have not seen, but it is incredible. And I do love it a great deal, but I could not let Tully not be on my list. And Tully was just such a moving and brilliant experience of a movie. I thought the combination of Jason Reitman and the screenwriter Diablo Cody, thank you. They just work so incredibly well together, and especially in this one, they were just really in tune. And then Charlize Theron's performance is so compelling. It's a shame that she's not in the Academy Award conversation right now.
Yeah, that's one of, I think that might be my favorite performance of the year. But I'll be honest, the female leads and they're and this supporting are really tight this year. I mean, you could really make an argument for a lot of people. My number 9 is A Simple Favor. I had way too much fun with that movie. I thought it was really, really well done. I thought the acting was phenomenal. Came out a little early. I think it should have come out around this time. I think it's that good. But I don't know. I'm leaving off movies like Wreck-It Ralph and, like I said, Green Book and Boy Erased and Beale Street, all these great movies, but A Simple Favor, I really like that movie, and I think people should see it.
My number 9 is Tully, and surprisingly so. I haven't really liked stuff that they've done together, or at least it's got me thinking and not wanting to rewatch that kind of thing. But this one challenged me in a good way, and it's Charlize Theron's performance. It is one of the best of the year. It's raw and authentic, and I just dig that kind of thing. And this one, although it's less to speak to me than perhaps other crowds, I still felt this one a little bit more.
My number 9 is Unsane, Steven Soderbergh's experimental film that he made on a cell phone, starring Claire Foy, and she's maybe I think she's had a better year than any other actress, honestly, in terms of the multiple movies that she's in. Even the Girl in the Spiderweb, which wasn't a great movie, she's incredible in it. She was also in this and First Man. She was incredible in First Man, and she's amazing here, pulling off this performance of a woman who gets put into an insane asylum, essentially, and it just gets swallowed into our healthcare system. And it's a horror movie, and it's amazing. It's exceptionally well made. Soderbergh is a master. I love this movie.
I'm so glad he didn't retire.
Yeah.
No, it's also really watchable too, for as artsy as it is. I'd argue Nicole Kidman had a hell of a year. I think she should be in the conversation for both supporting actress and actress. What was it? I just watched it. Where she's a cop.
Destroyer.
Destroyer. Movie itself isn't okay, but she's phenomenal in it.
Yeah, and I walked out of the theater last night having seen Aquaman and said, thank God Nicole Kidman was in that. And that's not something that I often say.
And Boy Erased, I mean, she really holds that movie together and actually makes it that much more effective. Wait, number 8?
Yep.
Annihilation. I came out really early in the year, but, you know, it's one of those Enemy, Gone Girl type movies, especially more Enemy, where we're sitting here trying to figure out the movie, and I think we kind of nailed it. As far as I'm concerned, and I think a lot of people miss it a lot. I mean, and it's one of those. I always get annoyed at certain people who like certain movies because they're more elite movies, and in a way, this kind of makes me feel that way because it's a movie I get and you didn't, so fuck you. But it was it was a lot of fun. I thought Natalie Portman was great in it. Oscar Isaac was good for when he was in it, but. I don't know. Annihilation's my number 8.
I've changed my list as I completed it on Friday, having seen a couple through this weekend. Originally, I had something at number 8, and I've turned it into Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse for it being yet another superhero film, and I haven't seen as much as you guys have this year. This month has been a little rough for films, but this one's going to stick with me for a while. This is perhaps the most watchable superhero film I've seen in a long time. In a couple of weeks on the show, I waxed poetic about it. It might have been last week.
By the time this comes out, it'll be a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And how wonderful the animation was and how wonderful the performances vocally were in injecting life into characters like Miles Morales, who we didn't know, but we care about just as much as Peter Parker by the time the film is over. I'm just astounded by how much love went into this, and it reminds me of my youth and how much I loved Spider-Man back then. So, of course, it made it on my list.
My number 8 is Annihilation.
Really?
Yes. It came in at number 8 for me. I kept pushing it out and kept coming back at me. And then there was I shared a video with you guys that you didn't particularly care for, but I thought was incredible, and it just kind of showed me yet another side to how brilliant Annihilation is. Guy who goes by on YouTube as Foldable Human, Dan Olson, does an amazing video on this. And that really convinced me just how much I love this movie.
The funny thing is, the reason I didn't like it is because he acted like an elitist. I just got done saying, yeah, that was part of what makes me like it more. I do think if Annihilation was out right now, it might even be higher on my list. The fact that it's that low is because it's been so long since I've seen it, but I have seen it twice, and I adore that movie. My number 7 is Mandy. This movie was made for me. They pretty much said, I want to make a movie for Bob, and they did. I mean, they opened it with King Crimson, and my favorite King Crimson song on top of that. You got Nicolas Cage, probably in the craziest performance of his career, and he's had some crazy freaking performances. It's just a phenomenal, fun movie for the right person. This one isn't one where I'll throw the elitist card out there, but it definitely has its own audience, and it's definitely me, and I think we all kind of enjoyed the movie as well.
It didn't make my top 10, but it's an honorable mention. I do love that movie, and I loved the experience of it. And Linus Roach is incredible. Nicolas Cage, that bathroom scene is arguably the most memorable scene of any movie this year.
Yeah.
That is my number 7 as well. It's less for what you're saying and more for championing this newer style of filmmaking where it's kind of a trance mode filmmaking and hearing a lot of retro vibes out of the soundtrack. Now, Johan Johansson, this was one of, if not his last score before he passed away. He of Sicario and Arrival. That's the kind of music I'm talking about, where if you just focus on the screen for a while, you're going to get enveloped by it because it's more of an experience than a film. That kind of thing is really lovely. And when I thought about my experience with this movie, it was definitely not as personal. I just love the style so much of this that it's staying with me more than most standard films. So that's why it's made my list.
My number 7 is Eighth Grade. Bo Burnham directed this one, starring Elsie Fisher. It's an A24 movie. It's a coming-of-age movie. It's very funny. It's very sweet, and Bo Burnham is a real talent to watch.
And I have not seen Eighth Grade. We did rent it one night, but we were recording this podcast while my family was watching it upstairs. So. But A24 has had a hell of a year. I think I have, 3 movies on my top 10? And I haven't said any of them yet. And I'm sure this one probably would have been right there, knocking out A Simple Favor, because I would have left Creed 2 and 10 anyway. But my, what are we, 6? Mid-90s. I think this movie is one of those where you watch it and you just start instantly liking it more every second that goes by after you left, because you keep thinking about it. And then when you get to have a conversation like we do, you start liking it even more. And it's just such a neat movie. I mean, to me, this is one of the best directing performances of the year, in my opinion. It's just such a tight, perfect movie that has a lot of things going on that you just have to kind of pick up on your own, and I think that's really neat. I love this movie, and when you can get a movie where you just keep liking it more and more, the further you get away from it, that says something about that movie.
It's another honorable mention for me. It didn't make my top 10, but it is fantastic.
Likewise, it's on my list, but not in there. My number 6 would be The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the 6 vignette. Is it 6? It is 6, right? 6. Okay. That's on Netflix, directed by the Coen brothers. None of them are bad. All of them are really good to great. And I can see revisiting this in the same vein that I would go back to Hail Caesar, where it's not quite the best work of the Coen brothers, but it's on that second tier. And second tier for Coen brothers is most people's first tier. So this is quite memorable. It's the deaths involved in all of these alone.
It was definitely an honorable mention on mine.
Yeah,
and
mine too.
I don't know if I said this on the podcast, and I don't think I have. My brother and I talked my dad into watching it, and he got, I think, 2 stories in. He's like, "You guys like weird movies." I'm done.
Yeah.
But at one point he goes, "I think the guys who made Oh Brother Where Art Thou made this movie."
Hey.
Like the only Coen brother movie he really likes.
My number 6 is Black Klansman, Spike Lee's movie. It is spectacular. It is a monumental work of a director, and it's great to see Spike Lee doing something incredible again. I love this movie. I wanted to put it a little bit higher, but the more I leaned into something that was far more emotional going forward, and so Black Klansman, as much as I admire it, I don't have the emotional connection to it that I had with a couple of the other movies.
My number 5 is back to an emotional connection, and you guys already said it on your list. It's Tully. I don't know. And I know this is not the movie saying it all, but I'm constantly being yelled at for not cleaning enough, not doing this enough, not being a good enough husband, blah, blah, blah. And then turns out she was the problem all along. No, that's not what the movie is, but there's a little bit of that in there. And that just kind of boosted a little higher for me. But for what it really is, too, it really is a phenomenal movie. And Jason Reitman, he was on Kevin Smith's podcast a week or 2 ago. And it was just really neat to hear him talking about like how this and Young Adult are failures, and the front runners of, is that what it was? The front runner? It was in the theaters for like a day. That was a failure. You know, he's considers a lot of things that I think are really good as failures. Or at least that's the way he's perceived by the mainstream. At least that's what he thinks. Because everybody compares him to Juno and the success Juno was. But I don't know. He's a phenomenal director, and I love Tully.
I think he's better than his father at this point.
He's definitely different. You know, they're not in the same lane at all, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and I can think of one great Reitman film, but so far, right, Jason is known for more. Anyways, my number 5 is Annihilation, and I remembering this because it was 10 months ago, for crying out loud, when I saw this. And it's just been that one time. I was trying to remember what about this really drew me back to it. It's the moments of genuine fear in this movie, like the stuff that's so unnatural that it shook me to my core a little bit, and that's rare. I probably see one movie a year that does something like that, even though it has at times a slower pace and a little bit more vague than most of my science fiction preferences are. I like how it challenged me to think afterwards. I'm only asking for science fiction films to make me ask questions afterwards. Combine that with some of the gross imagery and the possibilities for the story if they were ever going to revisit the story. I like all of the things that it means now as well as what it was back then.
God, he just described my number one. That's weird.
Interesting.
No, I think Annihilation is just perfect. There's so much weirdness in it, but it all matters and means something. And just not a lot of movies can do that without having a lot of fat on them, as we say. Sean?
My number 5 is Sorry to Bother You, one of the boldest movies of the year. It's funny. It is political. It is deeply political. It is it's the most bold commentary, I think, of the year on corporate culture, political culture, black and white culture. It's incredible. Boots Riley, for a guy who's not made many films before in terms of features, makes it a spectacular here, just bursting into the mainstream.
No, this was an honorable mention for me. I thought this movie was phenomenal, and it was the nice breath of fresh air at the time, because everything I feel like coming into that or around that was a sequel or a superhero movie or just something that was getting old.
Yeah, you'll hear from that again from me.
A dinosaur movie.
Yeah.
My number 4 was Black Klansman. It really came down to this or Sorry to Bother You, and I like this one better than Sorry to Bother You. It's so smart. It's so much fun. It's true. The performances are amazing. It's just I loved this movie more than I thought I would, and I thought I was going to like it a lot.
My number 4 is Sorry to Bother You. At some point when I saw this, I called it the number 1 for me at that point. It was total breath of fresh air, not just with the filmmaking visual style, but the way the film is presented. It's just a little bit different. I can never remember the dude's name. Keith Stansfield? Lakeith Stansfield, thank you. He plays a guy that I'm thinking back on it. He had to have been sucking down Monster Energy drinks the whole time he was making this movie, because there's something about his eyes, okay, that are just wired the whole time. And then the movie does this thing where it completely tricks you out of nowhere towards the end. No idea that was coming. It works so well within the tone of the film. Everything is consistent. Everyone's playing it consistently. It's both a comedy and a commentary, which is, and it mixes in a little science fiction in a way too. So it's got it all for me. I can't wait to see what this dude does next, because he's got a particular voice that is wholly unique compared to what I've seen.
I think the main reason I left it off was, and it's probably similar to the way you were talking about Black Klansman in our chat, the commentary bothered me because I didn't think it was totally fair. That was my big. I think we talked about it on the show when it came out. That was kind of the main thing that kept me from keeping it in the top 10.
My number 4 is You Were Never Really Here. Lynn Ramsey, Joaquin Phoenix with a hammer. This movie is violent, vicious, dark, disturbing, and it's kind of it's like Mandy but serious in a way. Like, it is. I love this movie. I think I was shocked that this movie hasn't gotten more attention, because it is so incredibly artful. And Lynn Ramsey is a talent that people don't talk about nearly enough.
Yeah, I liked that one. I don't know why I didn't leave it on or didn't put it on or put Mandy ahead of it, but it's a hell of a movie that I think you can see right now. It might be on Netflix, or it was at one point. If not, it's on Amazon, so people should definitely see it. It's a ton of, I don't want to call it fun, but it's a unique. it's worth watching. I guess it's my turn, huh? Number 3 is First Reformed. When we talked about this on the show, when I talked about it at least, I compared it to Mother. It's really nothing like Mother other than the message. There's hope involved, but there's also some really dark imagery. And then Ethan Hawke is it's one of the best performances I've ever seen him give. I could definitely see him getting an Oscar for this. It's just such a good movie, and similar to mid-90s, I just kept liking it more the second I stopped watching it. I think this movie's phenomenal, and it doesn't spoon feed you, but at the same time, it's the commentary in it I think is fair, and I don't know. I just really, really love First Reformed.
It's an honorable mention for me, just off my list.
And I'm interested in seeing it. My number 3 is Eighth Grade. This competed with Sorry to Bother You as my number 1 at the time when I saw it. Authenticity is a word I go back to a lot, but this one really, really hits. I'm thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the future when I watch this movie, and how hard it probably is to be a kid, and the performance of the lead. I forget her name, but I think that. Yeah, thank you. She deserves some kind of recognition for this too. It's such an honest performance. She's looking at the screen and you can just see all of the emotion pouring out of her. You usually don't get that out of relatively unknown child actors. You usually recognize them in certain roles before you see them in a lead like this. And she's just wonderful in it. There's something to say about overcoming a Bo Burnham bias too, because I really don't like his comedy, but he's got something to say with his direction. He's really getting to the heart of the matter more than most movies about young teenagers actually do.
My number 3 is If Beale Street Could Talk, Barry Jenkins' new movie. He's, of course, the director of Moonlight. This is a romantic story based off of a James Baldwin novel. It's kind of a poem. It's kind of a symphony in many ways. It's obviously a romantic film about a woman whose boyfriend is imprisoned wrongly, and she's about to have his baby, and she's trying to get him out of jail, and just absolutely incredible. It's just a wonderful piece of direction.
It's an honorable mention for me, and I feel really bad about it because it's almost racist reasons why it's honorable mention. But I think the acting in this is phenomenal. I think my big bias problem is, if it was like Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain, I'd probably love this movie because I know who they are and I'm a big fan of them. And it's just not being as familiar with the actors and actresses that made this a great movie, but I couldn't grab onto it on a personal level, which I hate even saying, but it's honest and true, so I will. But it is a phenomenal movie. I think you could see some awards come out of this movie, acting-wise for sure, and direction. It's really a great movie people should see. And
deeply moving.
I do feel bad that it's not on my list, but I just have so many that are...
Regina King absolutely just kills me in this movie. She
deserves the supporting actor Oscar. When she goes... It's a hell of a movie.
Regina King has been an actress I've liked for a really long time. She's never been in a project where you would really consider it for Oscar talk. And it's kind of cool to see her thought of even being recognized with awards. I thought she's always been strong.
Yeah, to me, off the top of my head, supporting actress-wise, it's her and Nicole Kidman for Boy Erased. And I think I'd lean Regina King, to be honest with you. Is it my turn again? God damn it. Number 2, we're flying through our top 10s this year. A Star Is Born. I love this movie. When we watch the Harry Potters, I went and watched 1 million of them in a week, and I burned myself out. We've done other movies where we've watched too many of them at a time, but we watched 4 this week, and this was the last one I saw, and it still managed to, one, be my favorite of the 4, as much as I like the original, but 2, just be a phenomenal movie. I think Bradley Cooper's direction in this is perfect. There's so many little things in it that go unnoticed, I think, for that are really important. The way I don't know. I love this movie. I have a hard time talking about it properly, especially without discussion. I'm more good of replying than leading. But
I'm going to surprise Bob here and tell you that this is an honorable mention for me, honestly.
Well, I remember you liked it.
I came around on it a little bit more. I've seen it 4 times now because various friends and family want to see it, and they make them see it. So, no, I wrote a piece on this not too long ago about the visual language of A Star Is Born, and especially the suicide scene. It's an extraordinary, smart, powerful piece of visual filmmaking. There's not a word said, and that is so valuable. So many movies can't shut up and just let the images speak, and yet here you have it starts with him just giving his dog a steak, and you're like, uh-oh. And then it cuts to the garage and him just stumbling out of that truck. The pills fall on the ground. He walks into the garage. You don't go to his face, you stay on the belt. The belt, of course, is a recall back to his father who hung himself with a belt. Oh, shit. We go a little bit further. Still no sound. Still no cutting to his face. We go to the hat. He sets the hat down very carefully, and then you know exactly what is about to happen. He slams that garage door down, and you're a mess in that moment.
Yeah. That, I mean, you're capturing songwriting in it, which I think if you can capture that properly, that's one of the coolest things. Anytime you can capture creation on an artistic level is a really neat thing. And then, you throw the acting in there. Lady Gaga's phenomenal. Bradley Cooper's phenomenal. He does the hearing thing perfect. If it wasn't for the number 1 movie coming out that I'm about to get to in a little while, this would be well above everything else I've mentioned. These are my top 2 by far. Than everything else, I'm just kind of cutting straws. Josh?
My number 2 is Black Klansman, which leaves little doubts for everything else. But watched that and thought to myself, this could be my favorite movie of the year. About half hour in, then an hour in, I said, oh, this really could be my favorite one of the year so far. And 99% of the way through, I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. This has got to challenge my number 1. And then something weird happens at the end where I didn't feel my experience of the film matched what I was seeing because I got it already. And so it seemed slightly repetitive. However, that I don't want to take anything away from the film itself. It's smart. It has a style to it. It uses particular music that's wry and on point. This is Spike Lee, what he can do. There's stuff that Spike Lee has done where I haven't enjoyed as much, where he's maybe a little too on message or maybe a little too high on style. This is all of his good parts mixed into one, and John David Washington and Adam Driver as the leads. That's an incredible duo right there. I mean, especially every scene that Adam Driver is on screen having to withhold and then go along with it. I didn't doubt him for a moment, and that's really fantastic. Then on the other end, Denzel Washington's son, you can hear Denzel in this guy, okay? There are a couple words that he says where I'm saying, there it is, right there. I've never seen this man in anything before, so my introduction to him is in this magnificent role where he has to play the white guy on the phone and withhold all of his anger about this. He's such a controlled character, and the fact that it's true, and the fact that I love it when idiots get their comeuppance in a film or in real life. I would love to know if the part involving David Duke at the end is really true, if it's based on something or if it's a bit of a fictionalized account of it. Whatever the case may be, it's a wonderful film that renews my faith in Spike Lee, as it should.
He didn't reveal himself to David Duke until years later.
Okay.
But yeah. That
scene is wonderful. I was just hoping that it was true.
Scene, yeah. No, it was years later that he revealed himself to David Duke, but everything else leading up to that, all of his entire relationship with David Duke on the phone before that is real. My number 2 is Ralph Breaks the Internet. This movie broke me down. This movie is amazing. I think it's just a work of absolute art, but it's also a brilliant piece of storytelling. And it's especially just so valuable, I think, for children to see a movie like this and to see a film that communicates such a powerful message about how, you want these things, but not maybe the person that you care about doesn't also want those things, and you have to be respectful of that and learn to have that respect. And that's a beautiful message that not a lot of movies can communicate very well, and they communicate it beautifully here. The vocal performances are amazing. The color scheme, the animation is impeccable. I adore this movie.
I'm so mad I haven't seen that. What the hell? How in the world? That was the Sunday of the big snowstorm that we got around here, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that was the day I was going to sit at the theater all day. And as it is, you can't really get back during the week if you try.
That was Thanksgiving weekend. So that was probably the best weekend of the year for me. Ralph Breaks the Internet, Creed 2, and then Green Book all come out. And Green Book, again, I think the way we described that was a very safe, very good movie, great performances, but it's a movie that everybody is gonna like because it doesn't really challenge anything. My number one is Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to get Sean mad again. No, it's Hereditary. I mean, that's really no secret. Sean and I have been saying that repeatedly since it came out. Although I think at the time, Night of the Virgin was still Sean's number one. Which I don't believe you mentioned in your top 10.
I moved it out because it did come out last year.
Oh.
So.
But to me, it is, I think it's one of the most I don't want to call it misunderstood, but just missed movie. The direction is so good, it almost is too good for its own good. There's, some of the, and I know Josh has mentioned that how it hasn't been consistent. It kind of changes on you. And I don't think that's true, but I think part of the reason that there's stuff that's in there the whole time, but he hides it in the dark, or it's not obvious, and it's almost like I would still put like Jonah Hill and Bradley Cooper as better directing than this movie, only because half the audience missed it, or not even missed it, but he did it to them. We always say when you bring something to a movie, you take something from the movie. It's not, or I don't know. It's if you get taken out of the movie, that's the movie's fault for taking you out of the movie. It's not your fault for jumping out of the movie. And I think that's where he lost people, and that frustrates me because I think this is like what it was last year, Get Out. This should be this year, and it's not, and it pisses me off, and it's not fair because it is better than both those movies. It's right up there with The Exorcist in terms of a classic, if not better. I mean, I might be even leaning on better. I don't know. It's right there. Why not? You hate The Exorcist. It's such a good movie, and I'm sure Sean will talk about it later. So.
Of course. This is going to be another year where I break the podcast, where you guys both had Arrival as your number ones. Yeah.
At least you had that at like 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't have Hereditary on my list. I'm sorry, but a different experience. My number one is A Star Is Born, and I continue to have good experiences with this movie. Oh gosh, almost 2 months out now. The soundtrack itself is sticking in my head, but it's all of the things that you talked about with film language. I'm going to say them in not smart terms. How he uses silence to indicate emotion, and it is rare that you see somebody withhold their first time out as a director. Now, he had done a couple of things on his own, like smaller thing, but not a large film like this before. So I have to give him props for whomever he took advice from, or whatever he's modeling his style off of. Bradley Cooper did the right thing by not telling you every single thing that's going on. And you said it as when creation is done on screen. I always look at it as that moment when you know two people have fused their minds, like they just get it together. And that happens with two people most of the time. That kind of connection is so rare in the movies. I felt it, and I think the film gave us that with the performances, with the direction, with the songs. I was looking less at what he's doing with his hearing. If that's accurate, great. I thought it was just a good part of the character that he had.
He brought a doctor
that
on
issue.
set and everything.
Okay, great. I can't speak to that. I'm no expert. I can tell you how the emotion worked for me. The camera angles when they're on stage move in such a way that tell you the story without them speaking dialogue. They're singing for you, but they're saying something with the camera work there. When Lady Gaga is coming up on screen to finally get up there, I feel just as nervous as she does. The film is doing that to me. And it does that throughout the film, including that ending that song is not the strongest song that the film ends on, but I get it. Like I feel exactly what she's going through there. And it's just heartbreaking, but also lovely. This one's going to have a strong rewatchability factor. And that's always a thing that I factor in when I'm trying to decide the best movie of the year for me. It's how many times am I going to see this? And
look at my 88 list.
Absolutely. Star is Born is my number one as a result.
And what I think's really cool, and I kind of mentioned it when I talked about it last round, but with the 4 movies we watched, there are flaws, especially in the second 2, where just things don't hold up as well. When he interrupts the awards, when the way the female is discovered. The reason I think the first one works so well is the time it comes out in. It just flows better. He had to make some real changes to not make it kind of corny like the Streisand and the Judy Garland one did. And he really nailed those moments. She doesn't get discovered right away. She goes out on tours with him and she kind of builds up and it makes more sense. The award show thing kind of happens off camera, which is way better than walking up to the microphone and interrupting her. It's just really some great changes to make the movie that much better. And I don't know, I love this movie too. I mean, it's right there with Hereditary for me.
Yeah, the element of surprise too. As much as I really love Lady Gaga, I didn't expect her to be so strong in this role. It just is rare that musicians can transfer their talents and what they do to a film setting. And it seemed to me like she was just fine. I didn't sense any hesitation on her part or not natural. Everything was fine. I love this movie.
If there is a flaw, and this is something I'm totally making up, because I listen to the soundtrack way too much, because especially with what I like and the soundtrack, people are like, why are you listening to that?
Right.
I like The Shallows. Fuck you. I think they filmed that like while she was performing at some big festival. Totally making this up. I don't know this to be a fact. The crowd goes nuts when she hits the stage, and that's in the movie and it's on the soundtrack. But she's an unknown in the movie. So that's one little tiny thing that could be a flaw if it's true.
I thought about that, and then I thought, he's on tour already. They've already kind of spoken about this woman that's in his entourage. They briefly mentioned that in the film, if I'm not mistaken, like who's this woman or something like that.
But the crowd doesn't know.
But do they? Because if they're at a concert for this guy who's been around for a long time, anyone that seems like a person of interest and they notice her, it's a reach. I'm just saying that I was okay with it.
Mine's a reach. I'm okay with it. It's just, it was like a Lady Gaga type of applause, no pun intended. And
yeah,
that was the only
what are they going to tell the crowd? I guess like temper your enthusiasm for Lady Gaga.
Well, no, it's like she was performing. All right, Bradley Cooper is going to come up here and do this, and then I'm going to for a movie. But again, this may not have even happened. I'm working this out in my head because a lot of the concerts were real concerts. Willie Nelson shows, I believe, were most of them, but there were a couple of festival Lady Gaga performances, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that on the podcast. Anyway, Sean, Hereditary.
Yeah, my number one. We'll get to. Let's get to that. I just want to do a quick rundown of a couple of honorable mentions. Burning is probably the best foreign film of the year.
That movie's phenomenal.
It is so good, and it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery. It's a romance. It's so freaking good. Best documentary of the year: Ryuichi Sakamoto, Coda. He's a brilliant musician who uses the environment as his sort of his music. He plays the piano and plays every kind of piano there is, but he also records things out in the environment that he uses in his music, and it's beautiful. And that's a must-see documentary. Then some other movies. The smallest movie of the year that everybody completely missed, Just Charlie, about a transgender teenager. It's an English movie. It's absolutely beautiful. Bex is a little tiny romantic comedy with Lena Hall that I absolutely adore. Searching with John Cho, yet another brilliant experiment in film. The Favorite is one of the big Academy Award nominees, and it's not on my list, but I do like it a great deal. Leave No Trace
Yeah.
with Ben Foster and Mackenzie Aston. Just an absolutely beautiful movie. Vox Lux with Natalie Portman. That is a bold-ass movie that does not get the credit that it deserves. It bombed spectacularly. Everybody underrates it.
It came out.
It did. Yeah, it's in theaters. It's in our theater right now.
Well, I have to fucking take my kid to Aquaman and Bumblebee. Not that those are bad. We'll get to them later. But
Vox Lux is a bold-ass movie. It doesn't... It's like almost there. It almost works, but the ideas are there. They are big ideas, and I dig that. So props to that movie. And Mary Poppins Returns is an incredible movie as well. Very emotional. But Hereditary is the best movie of this year. It's a brilliant piece of horror. It's a brilliant piece of production design as horror. Those use of models is just absolutely ingenious. The reveal of those models, the way he pushes in on one to start the movie, and then suddenly a character walks in, and you're like, how the like? It's such a great piece of editing and CGI, just absolutely fucking brilliant. But then this movie just turns the screw on you. It keeps turning up the heat on you throughout. The character, there's a character that you think is going to be important throughout the movie that gets brutally murdered in this movie, and you never see it. It's like reminded me of The Witch a little bit in that way, like a very bold decision that happens early in that movie. Toni Collette is amazing. That performance continues to just grow and get better and better throughout that movie. And then that ending is like, I love that ending. The way that thing builds in just power and noise and chaos. And Alex Wolff does not get enough credit. That kid is incredible in that moment. The way he sells those big moments at the end, it's so powerful.
And I was talking about King Crimson earlier for Mandy. That's the particular song, Starless. They just kind of gradually grow that song. They added another note here. They add another, and they just kind of repeat it, and they add another one, and then repeat it and keep adding. That's all this movie does is just keep adding, and that's what I find is. But at the same time, when you're trying to figure out where it's going to go and not just letting it take you there, you're going to fall out of this movie. And I think that's kind of the major flaw of it, which is frustrating because 60% of the audience didn't like where it went, and I think it's because they're sitting there trying to predict where it's going to go, and instead of just going along for the ride. And but when you go for that ride and let it take you there, it's just such a remarkable movie.
I'm gonna have to watch that again. And it matters when we talk about it enough as we do. And then I start to second guess what I saw. And it's something that, being that it's the number one film for both of you, it would merit another viewing just to make sure. Not that I want to change my mind. I never want to. But if it happens to me that I finally see something different, that would be really nice. But the first brutal murder that we're talking about, that really shook me up. But as it should, I didn't expect that whatsoever, and I've got to at least applaud its boldness. The whole film's boldness, for that matter, makes a difference. It's just where it went. And I've had that problem with other films, so at least I'm being consistent in my stupidity, or whatever the case may be.
That moment is so remarkable. And again, the credit goes to Alex Wolff in that moment, where he realizes what's happened, and then you're like, what the fuck? You're just kind of, you're shocked, he's shocked, and you're like, how does the movie go on from here? And then he starts to slowly drive, and he drives home, and he gets out of the car, and you're, what's he gonna do? He goes to bed, and because even he is so shocked, he can't believe what happened, and then you just stay on him. The sun comes up. You hear noises around the house. Toni Collette and Gabriel Byrne are just going through the natural motions of the day, and all you hear is the door open and her walking toward the car and her reaction while you're watching his face. What a brilliant choice.
It's such a phenomenal movie.
You know, out of all of our lists so far, what I haven't heard of, and I wonder if either of you have seen it, I noticed it's on Netflix, and it was the number one for many critics across the country, and Cuarón's Roma.
I haven't seen it.
Black and white. I just know that it's on Netflix, and having seen a number of lists this week, I'm thinking,
it was on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a Netflix movie. It's good. It's well made. It's moving. I get what everybody likes about it. It's one of those hypnotic movies that kind of carries you along, and you kind of emotionally invest in it, and you don't realize it until the end. I think the main issue that I had with it...
Had to read?
Well, no, I don't have a problem with that, unlike some people.
I don't actually have a problem with that. That's a joke for the show.
Yes.
I liked Burning.
No, there's just a lot of dog shit in this movie, like literal dog shit. And he focuses very closely on this very literal dog shit. And I'm like, there's a point where it's just a car that is just driving up to a giant pile of dog shit. And he's focusing very tightly on the dog shit as the tire drives over the dog shit. And I'm like, why is this happening right now?
Was he the one that made Amos Perros?
I don't remember.
Oh, that's a good question.
I know there's him,
Iñárritu,
and Del Toro. They always get talked about between the three of them, but I know
there's just a whole lot of dog shit in this movie, and I don't quite understand the focus on dog shit. Other than that, I mean, it's exceptional in many ways, but the dog shit really turned me off.
I figured I better at least ask if we had seen it, only because it's been on so many lists, and I'm like,
Well, I actually did my list today, and I kept seeing that too. And today's literally the first day I noticed that movie, even knew that movie existed. So yeah, I kind of want to see it.
Black and white, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Have you watched the Sandra Bullock one yet?
No.
What about the Kurt Russell one yet?
God, no.
Oh, the Kurt Russell one apparently has like an actual mint condition on the card vintage Han Solo figure in the movie. Like, it's not just a... Anyways, let's move on.
Other fun movies that came out this year, Game Night and Tag.
Hell yes, I love Tag. I mean, I like Game Night a lot, but Tag just kills me. I've seen that movie 4 times, just like I've seen A Star Is Born 4 times, because I show that to everybody. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention 2 movies that are in the same vein, and we saw within a couple of weeks of each other back in August. Not that they are great, because they're not, but they had aspects of them that are very similar in that they're weird, they're nostalgic, and you don't quite know what's going on at all until close to the end. And that would be the Summer of 84, which our podcast did a whole thing about. And I don't like the movie as a whole, but I like a lot of parts of it, a lot, especially like the music and the visual storytelling of the film. But also Slice. I believe that's an A24 movie that we watched through Prime.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And that had such a weird thing going on with it where the pizza store is called something very strange and there's zombies working with people and Chance the Rapper is the hero. I don't get it, but it's memorable. So those 2 movies doing similar things made me think of it.
And we didn't really mention many blockbusters. I mean, you said Black Panther. A Star Is Born obviously was huge, but I mean, Ready Player One I thought was pretty good for not good enough to be on a list, but in terms of a blockbuster.
I've turned on Ready Player One after seeing it again. I'm not a fan anymore. But Bumblebee is maybe, other than Black Panther, which I think is even above just a Black Panther.
Give yourself a chance to turn on Bumblebee later.
No, I'm not going anywhere on Bumblebee. I love Bumblebee. Bumblebee's awesome. That movie's fantastic. That is a great deal of fun. And this is the first time I get to enjoy a Transformers movie, which is nice. And it just goes to show you that Michael Bay needs to not direct. That's just their main thing. This is the guy who made Kubo and the Two Strings, which is another pretty good animated movie. He's making this one, and he did a tremendous job.
We will get to this on our actual episode, which we're going to record after Christmas. But I actually watched this and Aquaman back to back today, and Aquaman I watched second, and there were times when I'm watching Aquaman, I'm like, I like what Bumblebee did in a situation like this better. I like the musical choices better than the score they're using.
Aquaman got the wrong Gregson Williams to do the score. Rupert, not Harry.
Well,
Harry's better.
The thing with Bumblebee is, and we'll get to it when we get to it, but they played like songs from the 80s instead of a score, and it worked so much better than this bad score that Aquaman had going.
Who would have ever thought the Transformers movie would be the one to use a Smiths song as a punchline?
Yeah. Anyway, we will do that later on. Anything else from 2018 that we want to talk about?
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I moved it off my list because I couldn't. Because even though I saw it this year, it did come out last year, so I was just kind of being technical. But Night of the Virgin is a weird, wonderful, brilliant film that is dark and disturbing. And I think part of my job is I see so many things that look the same. I see so many blockbusters. I see so many mainstream movies that, movies like Mandy, Hereditary, Searching and Unsane for that matter, and Night of the Virgin, they are just so different that I just embrace them that much more because they are so very much different than what we get to see in mainstream movies, and I wish more people would give those movies a chance because those are the movies that are really thinking about something.
Yeah.
I realize now, looking back at this, that it was easy to make a top 10, but on the whole, I clearly saw less theater films this year than probably 2013 when I joined this show. And I'm hoping to improve that in the next year, but it also speaks a bit to what came out. And the blockbusters I saw, some of them I saw twice, if you count Deadpool. But there weren't a whole lot of, man, I have to see that. I remember telling a couple of people at work who asked me, what are you looking forward to most? And I had to remember what came out in December, and it was kind of a struggle. So hopefully next year is just a little bit better one in terms of what it offers.
I will be honest, the two movies most of the year that I was looking forward to the most were Hereditary and A Star is Born. So
okay, you're fulfilled. But I got like Solo, A Star Wars Story, and
I forgot
Infinity
about that.
War is not quite what I hoped it would be.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Infinity War on the wrap up. Wow.
I mean, Aquaman is not on my list or honorable mentions. It exists.
It's a good movie.
It's fine. But, yeah, underwhelming.
Yeah, I did have a hard time with my top 10. I think I leaned more towards just stuff that spoke to me more personally than, because I mean, like Sean literally mentioned all the movies, but Beale Street, Boy Erased, Leave No Trace, Wreck-It Ralph, all those among others. I mean, even The Grinch was good. So I mean, it wasn't a bad year per se, but I do think you're right with the blockbuster wise, it was kind of weak.
The movies that I was most anticipating, First Man should have been on my list, with Damien Chazelle as the director and space and the space program being the subject. I had almost penciled that in as to my number one for the year before I saw it, and I don't care if I ever see it again. That's unfortunate.
And A24 hit another home run. So whether I don't know, between 8th grade, mid-90s, First Reformed, and Hereditary. I don't know. Are they going to push First Reformed, or is that pretty much dying with the awards too?
I'm not sure where they're going at this point. It's not Hereditary, I know that.
Well, yeah. Even though the critics tended to like that a lot. But whatever. All right. So overall, good year, bad year?
It was a good year. There's a lot of really good movies. Just nobody went to see any of them. As usual.
Perhaps on quality, but of course we're talking here, and the theater box office is up like 10% for the year compared to last year. So people did go see things, but maybe all the wrong things.
All right. Well, that is our show. Next year, hopefully it's another good year. Hopefully the blockbusters are better. Hopefully A24 keeps it up. I don't know. Anything you guys want to... Any resolutions you want to make for the show?
1989 was I still think of it as my favorite year on the planet. There are a lot of things going that particular year. The weather was awesome. The Cubs were in the playoffs.
For a second.
Right, in a very crushing moment. I know. Thank you. Zim left him in. Why? But 89 in film, I was at the theater a lot. And that was the first year that I really started to have a bit of independence at 10 years old. 10 years old then is the new, 13, where you can spend time, by yourself in public and your parents aren't worried that you're going to be abducted, apparently. But
that's not true to me.
Right. I'm not saying that at 13 he's going to get to do that, but...
No. I mean, 89 was, my first year to the theater.
Oh, okay.
I had to still, up until high school, I'd walk around the mall with my parents. It was horrible.
I did get a couple of independent moments in 89, and all of the blockbusters in 89 I definitely saw. I say this every time, but I would really like to watch all of the 89 movies that I haven't seen and really get a good picture of how the 80s is wrapping up. We've talked about 30-year movies now for quite some time.
Javi. Dog, Javi, come here.
He's a good boy.
Until he starts biting you.
But I'm hoping to get as many 89 films in as possible. I'm disappointed with my 88 output. After a couple of weeks here, I should be free and clear for the rest of my life in terms of special obligations.
Well, I'd like to get a couple more shirts up. I'm glad we got them going. Try to be more regular with something there. Maybe every 3 months get a new shirt. I'd like to do more Patreon and bonus episodes. I have ideas that it's just a matter of actually following through with them. But I don't know. Anything for you, Sean? Or are you pretty set?
I'm pretty set, yeah.
Plus me and Josh said everything already. All right. Well, thanks for listening again. It's been another great year, and we still have one more show for the year, but this is our year in review, more or less. But we'll see you next week with Aquaman and Bumblebee and Mary Poppins and Vice and what else? Something else.
Second act. Welcome to Marwin.
Things we bring to the show.
Vox Lux. Is that next week? All right. We'll see you. Bye.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean, the three best friends that anybody could have. Left, right,